All right, so this is going to be a group. We're not going to do it a lot like the class, but for the very first day to get everybody on the same page, I do have to do it a little bit like the class where I introduce what we're doing and what we're going over. In the future, I should not be talking this much. What we're going to attempt to do is give you guys some information prior to the meeting, a 10 to 15 minute presentation, maybe 20, and then the rest of the hour to work on what we talked about. And I'll get into that a little bit more as we go through here. But first of all, most of you probably know, but if you don't, my name's Andrew Canfield. I'm a grad student here. My focus is primarily web and database. And I got into cyber defense because I want to make websites more secure. I kept seeing it in the news where people's stuff was getting busted, people were stealing passwords, and I didn't want to be the guy getting the call at 12 a.m. going, dude, you screwed up major. So I got involved. The other reason I actually got involved is I had an interest in security, but I had no idea where to start. Did you guys know Kyle Gwinnett? Anybody familiar with Kyle? Okay, Kyle was one of the gentlemen originally involved in the CCDC about 2 years ago. He's now working at MIT as a vulnerability tester and explorer, so he's got a job doing this for a living now, and he loves it. But I joined because Kyle was everywhere. I went to go see ACM meeting to see what ACM was about. Kyle was presenting about cyber defense. I went to Colloquium. Kyle was there presenting. I went somewhere else. Kyle was there presenting. I walked up to him about the third time and said, if I sign up for your class, will you stop showing up everywhere I go? Because I want to see something else. But it was a pretty good deal. Last year we had a smaller class, and GP ran it, Giancarlo. He has also been hired at MIT and is doing very well there. He should be starting there very soon. Both of these guys were very smart, very experienced at penetration testing, hacking, very deep down code. First thing I want to say is I'm not an expert. This is a huge topic. I don't know everything. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. My area of expertise has been web and database. So I will do what I can, but some of you guys are going to know more than me in different areas. And if you do, I'm hoping you might be interested in doing some of the presentations as we go through this. Because you guys are going to get tired of hearing my voice. I don't want to be up here every time. We actually want to keep this thing going, so it's going next year as well. And the next thing I have noticed, every time I give a security presentation or talk, I get home and somebody emails me or texts me my new passwords. You can probably hack me if you try really hard. I'm not that locked down as I should be, but please don't. It lets me concentrate on getting prepped for the class, and we know you're smart. You don't have to show you're smarter than me. You probably know some tricks I don't. So please, again, don't hack me. People watching on video, that's you too. Just because you're not here, well, so how many of you guys were signed up for the class that was supposed to go this quarter? Okay, my apologies. Apparently what happened is, in the past, we've been a very small group, typically 5 to 6 people. We had over 20 people enroll on the first day it was open. We had a lot of interest, and so we got a little too big, and that got a little bit too much notice. And basically what it boiled down to is the way it had been coordinated with a grad student teaching it for the past couple of years is apparently illegal. And we got big enough, we got noticed, so we found out we couldn't do that. So if I messed up any of you guys' schedules, I truly apologize. Nobody was more frustrated with the way that rolled out than I was. So now we are an ACM special interest group. That actually resolves a lot of the issues we had with the class. I am not technically teaching. Anybody who does a presentation is not technically teaching. So we're not illegal. That's nice. We like being legal. The other part is this lets us, well, some of us like being legal. It's not actually. What we've done, we typically do this in preparation for a competition called the CCDC, or the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition. And it's a very exciting competition, but we're not actually going to make it this year. We'll get into that in a minute. But the way we prep for this is a 1/4 sprint. And Alex was here last year as part of it, and he was in here 2 hours a day for an entire quarter, and he feels like he was still a little frustrated with how he did. He did great at the competition, but you're never the only person harder, you're the hardest person on yourself, if you know what I mean. So you did good, man. So we're trying to avoid that 1/4 sprint by keeping this going year-round. Instead of having to focus every day for 2 or 3 hours and kill yourself and then forget it the next quarter, We want to do this year-round. And that way, we're going to learn more. We're going to have a little bit more fun. We'll be able to get more people involved. We are going to meet the first and third Friday of every month at 3 p.m. in this building. That is after the ACM meeting. So how many of you guys go to ACM? Okay, good. ACM is a good thing to do. You should join them, get involved. I try to be in there as well. They do programming videos, educational things. They've got the Linux user group. They introduced an Android users group today. They've got a lot more. And how many of you guys get hungry around this time of day? Okay, you guys are very, very camel-like constitution on you guys. Well, I get hungry around now. We get free sandwiches in there from Jimmy John's. So, worst comes to worst, show up because you get fed. So, you guys now know who I am. I kind of want to know who you guys are. So, we've got a couple of brief questions to run through if you can. Try to keep it about a minute or two. How about we start on the right, and we'll just make our way through. So, sir, would you mind saying
about the topic, but I'd like to know where it started.
Okay. Honestly, that's a lot for us. Alright, so we've got a couple of first-year grad students, and we had 4 juniors, right? 4 juniors. Raise your hand if you're a junior. Okay, 5 juniors. Good. We want to see some juniors in here because we're hoping that you guys and the first-year grad students get interested enough that we can keep this going in the next year, so that we can go to the competition. And I'm going to talk about the competition just a little bit. Basically, it's a live simulation. You come in as contractors, taking over unknown systems with unknown vulnerabilities. You're performing business injects, which are things that management would ask you to do, adding new users, taking users away, building websites, maintaining the systems. And you're under attack. The last couple times I've gone, there's 6 or 8 people per team, and there's 12 teams, so that puts you around 72 students. They had 88 professional penetration testers using cluster systems and all the external resources they could. So they kicked our butts. And it was really exciting. It was a lot of fun. So you actually go for a 2-day competition, and I feel like you learn more in that competition in 2 days than you pick up in a quarter or 2 of education here, because you're actually working with live things. One of the things that we have some challenges with in a computer setting is we work with things in very isolated pieces. If you're working with networking, we are going to walk you through the steps of, okay, for this lab, we're all going to plug it in. Next time, we'll do something else. So tying all those things together is a little bit harder to do in a classroom setting. So you get a competition like the simulation, and you have to put it all together, and you're under attack, and it is a lot of fun. The winning team, the first year I went, didn't handle the stress as well as some of the others. They did threaten to stab each other in the face on occasion. We were a little bit more relaxed, as you can tell. We like joking, we like having fun. We didn't win the competition, but the CIA is one of the sponsors, and Charlie from the CIA was there. Pretty sure he liked us a lot better than the stabby tendency people. A lot of the people who have been in this group have gone into industry. GP and Kyle have both gone to MIT. Kylie and Jordan have both gone to Trinium here in town. I'm probably not going after that particular area, but I want to be familiar with it when I go out there. I'm not sure where Alex is heading next, but it's very handy. So we've been in this competition, I think, 4 years now. The first year we got decimated. Second year we did better. Third year we got second place to the team that went on to become national champions. But to tell you kind of where it was at, they scored about 6,000 points. Actually, it was 7,000. We scored 2,000, and we were the closest one there. So last year when we went, the winning team won again and won nationals again, but we were at 6,000 points. We made some huge gains. We did really well. I was hoping this year we'd go and finally kick their butts, but it didn't work out that way. So the people who are going to be here next year, you don't have to live up to this, but you totally do. So we want to see you guys compete. We've got some of the best equipped lab here. We've got a lot of utilities available to us, and we're going to try to set up enough of a groundwork this year that you guys can keep this going. So if you have any interest in next year, you might think about maybe doing some presentations towards the end of this year. We're going to give you a foundation to start from. We're not just throwing you into the deep end and saying swim. We're going to give you some stuff to build on, but we're hoping that when eventually we throw you into the water, you swim instead of drown, or just say, no, I don't want to do this anymore. One of the challenges we did have this year, in addition to the class being canceled, that's lack of training, was lack of funding. We are now, like I said, a special interest group at ACM. We're going to help them with some fundraisers. We shouldn't have that funding issue next year. So the people who are involved, we're doing our best this year to remove all the roadblocks that we've had to fight through in previous years that eventually caught up to us this year. So one of the cool things that we can do, since this is a group instead of a class, and we're not going to the competition immediately, is let's focus on the index. We're not going to worry about the boring stuff. We're going to focus on the attack and the defense. That's the part you guys probably want to know about the most, so that's where we're going. I'm hoping that next quarter we can get a white hat versus black hat competition going again. It was done in the past as an ACM fundraiser, and people would come in and try to defend their computers while people such as us destroy them. Good guys never win, but it's nice that they try. We're rooting for the good guys, so that's where we're at. We're primarily going to use Linux for the attack. So how many of you guys are comfortable with Linux? Okay, if you're not, we'll try to help you through with it. You don't have to admin, you're just going to have to work through it. Most of the stuff we're going to use the GUI on. I like command line, but GUI is a little bit easier to pick up, so we'll take it from there. We're going to focus on Windows and Linux for defense. I'm a Mac guy. I feel your pain, but probably going to ignore Macs mostly for now, primarily because I have no idea how to equip your deployment. So I'm going to be showing you guys some stuff that could be used for evil intentions. I don't want you to do that. I can't do that in good conscience. So a very simple thing, if you will raise your right hand, we're going to do I'm not going to do bad thing. I'm not saying that. Okay, say, I will not use this knowledge for evil.
I will not use this knowledge for evil.
I will only be moderately obnoxious.
I will only be moderately obnoxious.
And I will never be malicious.
I will never be malicious.
Okay, for the record, you're on film saying that. If the FBI comes knocking on your door, they're not coming to mine. So there are a couple different things that you can do when it comes to penetration testing and vulnerability assessment, security in general. You have vulnerability assessment, which is the first part of penetration testing. And then you have penetration testing. The difference between penetration testing or PT, I don't want to say penetration that many times as I'm up here, is the difference between PT and being a hacker is penetration testers have permission. So if we're going to go over the basic cycle here for penetration testing, step 1, get permission.
Oh.
No means no, people.
Overlook that rule.
Permission. Yes. That doesn't have to be plural. So after you get permission, first thing you do is something called reconnaissance or information gathering. I should have gone with information gathering. I cannot spell reconnaissance. Oh, hey.
Just recon. Give up.
Oh, where were you 3 letters ago? Come on, wingman, help me out here. Okay, reconnaissance. This is typically ignored by new hackers because this part's not the stuff you see in movies. It's not the most exciting part. But this is where you figure out who and what you're attacking. Think of this like a bank heist. You don't run into any random room with your gun and go, give me your money. Oh, I'm in the library. That didn't work out so well. Let's run into another room. You need to do some recon first. You need to find out where you're attacking and why. Are you showing up? I'll get to that part next. After you recon and figure out who and what. Who and what. I love the whiteboard, so pardon me if I teach CPLA as well, so I tend to do the teacher type mode, so I'll try not to do that too often. After you've done reconnaissance, you need to do some evaluation. This is when you start doing your port scanning, your vulnerability scanning. Again, if this is a heist, this is when you encase the joint. Because once you say, hey, I know, bank got money. I won't go bank. No, you don't go bank. You walk into the bank, you find out if they have guards, you find out where the money is, you find out when they pick it up and leave it. You don't want to rob an empty bank. That is a terrible risk versus reward scenario. After you've done evaluation, you need to do exploitation. You found out what is running, found out what's running, so now you're actually going to try to do, vulnerabilities are specific. So it's not, you can just run a Hail Mary on everything. You actually have to go through and target very specific things that you found in the evaluation stage. In this point, this is the heist, it's timing. Just because you found your target and evaluated the target, you want to make sure you're exploiting it at the right time. 5 is escalation. So think of exploitation as getting into the bank. If you've gotten into the bank, have you won? Anybody? Any guesses? Okay, I see a yes, let's go. You need to get into the safe. That's where they actually keep the money. Escalation is getting the privileges that you need to do what you want to do. So this is, you actually need the power to do something. Power to do something. So after you've done something, what do you need to do? Heist movie. What do you do after you got the money?
Steal it.
Okay, you've stolen it. Now what?
Cover your tracks.
Get out.
Yes, it's the getaway. This is the post-exploitation. Here's the thing about computers, though, is if you rob a bank, people will probably notice. If you exploit a computer, they might not. So not only do you do your getaway, you install a ginormous door in the back of the safe so that you can get in easier next time without having to go through all the other steps. That's what they call backdoor. You've got a backdoor to get in to make it easier in the future. So here is where you hide your tracks, make your getaway. Hide your tracks, and then you maintain the access, typically with the backdoor. So as we're going through with this group, we're going to be digging into each of these. Well, we're going to skip number 1 because we got nobody asked permission. If anybody can get permission for us to test out on somebody, feel free. But note that they should back up all information, data, everything before we do that. But these are the overall steps. And next time we meet, we're going to start digging into reconnaissance. Keep wanting to jump to evaluation. That's where I want to start, but it helps if you lay down the foundation. This is where we actually get to do the scanning, the fun part. But this is important too, so that'll be next week. Any questions so far on the overview of the process? And it's really not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. After you install a backdoor, you're still doing reconnaissance. You're still doing the others. You loop back through. It's a constant process. You never stop. So any questions there? Everybody with me so far? Okay. So now I'm going to talk about the environment that we use. I'm going to try to keep it brief because I tend to be loquacious. First thing I want to point out, now I said I don't want to be loquacious, here's me being loquacious. There is such thing as the best tool for a job and a tool that's good enough. Some of the things I'm going to propose here are good enough for what we're doing. You may know better, but we're going to use the one that we're familiar with because it's good enough. If you're always trying to find the new best one, you never get anything done. So you guys may know better distros, better tools, better everything. We're going to stick with what we've got for now. We can grow later, but to get the basics, let's stick with the basics.
What are the basics?
The basics are, we are using VirtualBox, Kali Linux, and Metasploitable. We'll dig into these here real quick.
So we're not using Backtrack?
I'll get to that. Yeah, Kali is actually the next generation of Backtrack. Designed from the ground up to avoid all the headaches that they had in the past. So you guys know there's lots of virtualization software out there. There's VMware, there's VirtualBox, there's Parallels, maybe there's others. You may be comfortable with one. I'm comfortable with VirtualBox. That's what we're going to be focusing on here. Kali Linux is a penetration testing toolbox Linux distribution. So this is why I write things out, so it doesn't sound so nasty when I say it. It's basically a pen testing Linux distro. Backtrack has been the standard for penetration testing distros, but the folks behind it, Offensive Security, learned a lot in putting that together. They had some troubles with upgrades and various learning curves, so they've gone through and tried to fix that with Kali. This is ground up. They moved away from Ubuntu, upstream to Debian, and it updates a lot easier. It's primarily everything's in the path. You don't have to navigate, fight with your path so much. A lot of people struggle with path stuff, so you won't have to even worry what that means because you don't have to fight it anymore. We also talked about Metasploitable. One of the hardest parts about learning how to pen test is having a target. Metasploitable is also put together by the folks at Offensive Security, and it is a very vulnerable Linux distro. And if you guys are installing this at home, there is a small caveat. We'll talk about that when we do the VirtualBox. So one of the other good tools to exploit, so this is our attacker, this is our defender. You guys know a really good other defender with something else that's typically exploited. We have them in most buildings, but not in this room. Windows. All right. Does anybody have access to an old copy of Windows XP? Okay, you guys are aware you also have access to the Microsoft DNA network here. You guys can download a copy of WinXP. If you can get it unpatched at the lowest service level possible, this is a great target to learn on as well. So for terms here, there's a, I'm going to talk about terms next week because we won't be getting into that yet. And I'll skip that stuff. Alright. I'm trying to give you guys some time because we have a little bit of something we can do on the computer there. We'll talk about VirtualBox and the networking because that's going to tie into what we're doing. And we'll skip some of this other stuff later next. Or probably 3 times from now. So VirtualBox is virtualization software. Basically, if this is your computer, it allows you to run other computers inside of it, virtually. So this is nice because instead of having to have an attack machine and a defense machine, we can run them virtually inside of our own computer. We can take our penetration testing lab with us everywhere we go, practice this stuff on the road, practice it when you should be doing homework. Is anybody in Stu's OS class right now? Okay, when you need a break from that, you can do this and pretend that it's Stu that you're hacking. Do a little bit of a take that Stu sort of thing.
There's some fun stuff you can add today.
So it runs on your computer, lets you run other ones. This can do 32-bit or 64-bit systems, and it'll also allow you to virtualize devices. So if you've got a USB plugged in, you can actually connect it in and use it from there as well. If you guys take the security class, you're able to plug in antennas and other toys over here and use them on the, these are called guest machines. This is a guest, and this is the host. You can also share the hard drive. These guys have their own hard drive. They're treated as completely separate machines, but if you install guest editions, you can share a hard drive, which makes sharing information easier. You can also do snapshots, which is handy. These basically save your state for later reuse. So if you do your first installation, I suggest you immediately make a snapshot. That way, when you exploit this computer, you can roll back to the very beginning and start over again. You can try it out multiple different ways. It's called snapshotting. It will retain all your VM settings as well as your hard drive contents. And if you do a snapshot while it's running, it'll even capture your memory. So it's really cool for doing that. You can also clone, which is creating duplicates. It takes up a lot more hard drive space. Snapshot basically says, okay, this is it here, and then it builds on it. Clone just makes a duplicate, so there are many. It takes up a lot more space. One of the biggest challenges with VirtualBox and getting your penetration lab up and running is networking. VirtualBox has a lot of different networking options, and they can get confusing, but they're very, very important. One of the most important things, if you're zoning out, this is the most important thing, and get right and ready. most important thing, do not expose Metasploit to the web. Do not expose to the internet. In theory, your guest box is a virtual machine and doesn't have access out through the host. But they have shown vulnerabilities where they can go through and do that. So you're taking the most vulnerable possible thing out on the web and hoping you don't get hacked. This is like running around in a very, very rough part of Southern California with a whole bunch of money going, "Hi everybody, I'm defenseless and rich." Don't do that. Unless you want your children to grow up to become vigilantes and avenge them. So, do not expose this to the internet. So, the way we're going to dig into this is, inside of networking, you have multiple modes. The first one is not attached. I'm going to do this. This is as if your cable was unplugged. We are going to do host. H is host. G is guest. I is internet. If the cable is not attached, do you think it can connect to the host? Okay, good. We got some nodes. Be confident in those nodes, people. You cannot connect anything. Your cable's unplugged. It really boils down that simple.
So confident.
Be confident. You also have an option for NAT. NAT is Network Address Translation. This is the default setting. Yes.
On the side note of the cable not being attached, didn't like some Snowden documents come out? The NSA can like communicate to some cartel computers that are like completely off the grid through like the speaker in their computer or something.
Oh yeah, I didn't know NSA was doing that, but well it wasn't NSA specifically, but they've shown that you can control. You can detect. You can either detect keyboard strokes or other things through the sounds of the speakers, and connect at very low frequencies between computers at low-level audio levels. But there's that. We're going to stay focused so that I can finish. That is just like your router at home. It wraps everything up in a bubble and treats everything behind it. So if this is your router and these are multiple machines, if you use NAT, this is all that the internet sees. Just one connection. There's nothing going out from there. With NAT, you can connect to the internet, but that's it. That's the default setting. If you do bridged connects your guest directly to your NIC, bypassing the host. This treats your computer as if it were a real-life computer on the network. So this allows you to communicate with other hosts, other guests, internet, and I guess the rest of your network. Should you ever set Metasploitable to bridged?
Probably not.
Okay, that is the most dangerous thing you can do. Please do not do that. We can also go internal network. And that allows it to communicate with other hosts, with the host, and with guests on the internal network. And finally, we have host only. Anybody have a guess here?
Maybe the host, just because.
Yes.
So
It's
far.
possible to communicate with other guests like that, but just focus on as host only. So you can use host only if you're setting up like a web server and you just want to connect into it from your local machine. Set up as host only, you don't have to worry about the rest.
What's the fourth column you added?
The network you connected to.
Okay.
So this guy can't communicate to anything else. He can go bridge. He can't. Yeah, that's right. So if you, you can create as many. You can create up to 8 network adapters inside a virtual box. Any idea why you might want more than one network adapter? Okay, here's why. So I'm going to draw a diagram here. We've got the host. Here's the internet out here. Here is Callie. And here's Metasploit. It's always more fun if you make sound effects. So if you want Callie to attack Metasploit, what are you going to need? Again, these other colors here. What do they need to be able to do? Yep, they're going to need to be able to communicate. They're going to have to be able to talk to each other. So how might we apparently hatching pins out of my various places? Okay, Callie and Metasploit. You want them to communicate. Which one of these could you use to have them communicate? You can use bridge. But if you wanted to live, what would you do? That doesn't work because they can't communicate to each other. You want them to be able to communicate internally. So we've only got two options. We only have one option.
Yes.
So we're going to use an internal network here. Internal. But say Callie needs to run an update from the web. What are you going to need for Callie to be able to get out to the internet? Only two ways for it to connect to the internet. NAT or bridged. So we're going to do that by using NAT because it's the easiest one to work with. So this guy has how many network connections, network adapters? Two. And Metasploit has one. Yep. So if you guys are at your local machines, go ahead and log in. We're going to play around with this for a minute. You have two machines that need to be able to communicate and one that needs to be able to update. Have you guys done a networking class yet?
Yes.
Okay. For those of you who have or haven't, we've got a couple of steps for troubleshooting a network connection. The first is if you can't get two computers to communicate and you're in a real-world setting, what's the very first thing you check?
The cable.
Yes, is it plugged in? This has been my problem so many times. People kick out cables all the time. So, troubleshoot. So step one, check cable. If you check underneath these settings inside of VirtualBox, there is a checkbox that says cable connected. If that doesn't work, you need to find out if you have an IP address. If you don't have an IP address, what are the two ways to get an IP address? You have
DHCP.
okay, you have dynamic. What is the opposite of dynamic?
Static.
Static. You have static and dynamic options. And dynamic's typically done through a DHCP server. If you don't have an IP, you either need to set one or get one. We might go to that in a minute. If you have an IP, the next thing you're going to do is check your routes and make sure you have a path out. You always need to know what your gateway is and make sure everything's set up there. From there, it's good to find out if it's if it's connecting to a single one or if it's connecting to other ones. So you ping multiple places. And then finally, you check your trace route to find out if you can actually get to where you're going. So our goal at the moment, we've got two virtual boxes set up. We want to get them to talk. We want to make sure that Callie's got two network adapters, Metasploit's got one. And once again, do not expose Metasploitable to the internet. We're going to wipe everything out on these computers, but still, let's not destroy them. We'll destroy them later for fun, but let's not do it by accident. Here as I go. So, from Callie, I want you to be able to ping Google successfully. And I want you to be able to ping Metasploit. From Metasploit, I just want you to be able to ping Callie. If you could ping Google.
Did you set your network settings? That's not supposed to be pushed over there.
This is probably going to be the headache that you guys have at home. So since I figured out this one before you, if you guys are setting up a home lab, this will help you set up the home lab.